You hear Larry Krueger on all the shows talking 49ers. Also, Niners Nightly, which I believe will go on tonight instead of last night because there was a game and all. And, of course, you check out the Krug Show on YouTube, which is ever growing. Make sure you check that out. Krug joins us courtesy of the Uma Guest Line. What's happening?
Doing great. Feeling great this morning. And it was a hell of a game last night. And in that last segment, I definitely think the 49ers are better this year than last year. Quite a bit better.
Why? How so?
Well, I mean, Leonard Floyd. He's the best edge rusher they've had since Bosa, or opposite Bosa, in this regime. He had a bunch of pressures last night. He had a sack. He had a 21% pressure rate. Him alone would make them dramatically better. The secondary is quite a bit better. And then they've added three really good weapons in Cowling, Pearsall, and Garendo, and a starting offensive lineman that might be one of the best they've drafted in years. So I think they're – and then Malik Collins. I mean, talk about Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott. I think those guys are factors up front. I think Gross Matos, when he gets out there, I think he's going to be a factor. So I think the Niners are better up front. I think they're better on the back end. I think Sorensen's an upgrade from Wilkes. I think Pooney's a major get on that offensive line, and I think they got some more speed.
Yeah, I mean, Leonard Floyd just knows how to rush the quarterback. There's no doubt. Dee Ford was pretty good when he was healthy, but he wasn't healthy after he tried to trace down Kyler Murray in mid-November after that loss against Seattle when they were 8-0, and he just never was the same. So, you know, the gold rush around here, that first Bosa rookie year pass rush when you had Nick on one side, and Nick was only a rookie. He was Defensive Rookie of the Year, but now he's a former Defensive Player of the Year. He's added the Freeney span, and he's a better player. But just compare this group now, where you got, you know, Javon Hargrave and Malik Collins inside, shorter, stout, wider, more traditional D tackles than the guys they had, the Oregon Tall Furs, when you had two, 6'7" former basketball players in DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead, Larry. And then, compare Floyd to D Ford. Can we make the point that the entire D line, and the depth maybe is not as there as in years past, when you had a few guys that really could rush the quarterback, but could this group be better than Bosa's rookie year front four?
I mean, Defoe is so special that it's hard, and he was on that team, and he's not on this team. So, but I'll say this: I do really like Jordan Elliott's talent, and he's got great feet. He's 310 pounds. I talked to him Saturday. I think we're both in agreement that Jordan has an ability to play his best football here, but he hasn't done it yet. So it's a little bit of a projection. So I'd put that line because of Defoe a little ahead of this line, but I like this line. I think they're really special off the edges. We need a bounce-back year out of Hargrave for sure, and we need Jordan Elliott to kind of fulfill that potential. But if those things happen, it wouldn't surprise me at all if this line, was really special at the end of the year.
Larry Krueger is joining us. By the way, you can check him out and us out on YouTube and Twitch as well, so make sure you check that out among many of the platforms. But you can see Krug on YouTube or Twitch right now as we talk Niners, the 32-19 win over the Jets on Monday night. Obviously, the number one story is Jordan Mason. Along with Jordan Mason being so great last night with the 28 carries for 147 means what's going on with Christian McCaffrey. So how do you balance those two things out? You're very happy about the J.P. Mason and the depth at running back, but then again, anytime you hear Achilles, you got to be nervous about Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, I mean, the Achilles is a terrifying thing to hear when it's attached to your best player on offense, who also is a dynamic mover, right? So, I mean, I thought what we saw last night was really impressive from Jordan Mason. Really impressive, I thought, from the Niner offensive line. Look at all the yards that he got before contact. I thought that was impressive. But some of the numbers that my son was showing me just an hour ago, Mason faced a stacked box 50% of the offensive snaps. It was the second or third highest rate for any running back in week one. So not only did he run this well in place of McCaffrey and against a very good Jet defense, but he did it against, a stacked box. It wasn't like they weren't ready for him. They were ready for him. But the Niner line was outstanding, and I think you're seeing what Mason is. Mason is a very special football player. He really is.
And you knew Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich were going to stack the box. They wanted to stop Kyle's running game. That's one thing. When everybody knows you're going to run it, They know you're going to run it, and they can't stop the run. It's demoralizing, and that's where the Niners are with the 38 rushes, and JP had 28 of them. I know you've been a fan. He was not drafted into the NFL because his numbers at Georgia Tech and Jahmyr Gibbs was there part of the time. I mean, he never had a 1,000-yard season there. He wound up with 2,300 yards, but still ran effectively over 5 yards a pop when he was there. He's big at 5'11", 223. He's not a 4'4" guy. He's a 4'5'8" guy. But I think he does take the short gain and the intermediate, and he is able to turn the corner like he did last night going down the sideline. If the Niners play him more and are forced to play him more, McCaffrey has to miss a couple of more weeks, and teams start to prepare for him a little bit more. I think they had an inclination he may play, but I don't know if they knew 28 carries, but they still couldn't stop it. How productive with the measurables, the 40 time, can J.P. Mason be, Larry?
I think he can be a starting caliber back. Now, he's been remarkably consistent. He's never not run for 5.5 yards a carry. I mean, think about that. I mean, he's always run for at least 5.5 yards a carry. We're talking about over multiple seasons, lots of different, looks. And granted, though, I've got a lot of respect for the guys who scout in this league and the guys who their job is to turn off your faucet, right? Make sure that you suddenly can't do what you want to do. So there will be teams that study, what runs he likes, how, the tendencies that Kyle shows with Jordan back there. And there will be teams that devise better plans to shut him down. But how many defenses are really better than the defense they faced last night? I mean, I would say that defense is probably for sure one of the 5 best defenses they'll face all year. So more times than not, I think they'll face less talented defenses that don't have Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. So I feel really good about Jordan. I don't think there's anything accidental. I do agree that the Niners may have caught the jet. There might have been a little gamesmanship to, the announcement of Mason and the injury and this and that. But, the Niners also, there's some gamesmanship going the other way. The Niners talking to Sorensen and talking to the players, they had to go back and watch an assortment of teams and films just to get a good handle on what they thought Green Bay or what they thought the Jets were going to provide last night. So a little gamesmanship for sure, but I love Mason going forward.
Larry Krueger joining us, Pop and Lund here on the Sports Leader, recapping the 32-19 win over the Jets. You'll hear Larry all week long on all the KNBR shows. And again, Niners Nightly. That's tonight, right? You'll have Niners Nightly on tonight?
Yeah, it's every night. JD's going to be my guest tonight. Cool. He's going to stop. We're going to talk a little with JD. And then tomorrow night, Pete Bursich, one of my favorites, the former Notre Dame linebacker who's a color analyst for the Vikings, is going to stop by tomorrow night.
Very, very cool. In terms of the thing that maybe long-term is most impressive to me is just the trenches. We always worry about the offensive line. We were worried about Trent. No worries there. Pooney continued from his preseason, played well. Despite the fact that McKivitz had a couple of penalties, he played well or graded out well. The defensive line, I think, is going to be better. Armstead was hurt so much last year. I liked Floyd. I liked Malik Collins. I think that, again, it's only one game, and I'm not going to say all the fears are put to rest, but I thought in the trenches they dominated.
Yeah, and that was a big question. I mean, they didn't do a lot to change the offensive line. They added some good depth. I like some of these guys. Drake Nugent, I thought, had a good camp. I think he's got a nice future in the NFL. That was a nice get for the practice squad. Kingston was a nice get, and then they lost him at the cut down to Carolina. But Pooney is just, Chris Forster, does not throw around compliments very, very liberally, let's just say. And he was like, talking about this kid, how he's awesome, and he's just so much ahead of a rookie typically at this point in the mental aspects of the game. Just his awareness, his ability to think on his feet, his violence in the run game, is much, much needed. And suddenly, I thought the Niners, the last few years have run much more successfully to the left than to the right. I think you're going to see that change this year. I think you're going to see them have an ability to run the ball both ways, and that's a huge, huge advantage.
I know you were impressed with the way Nick Sorensen called the game last night, Larry, and It was a combination of pass rush and coverage behind, and we're talking about comparing this year's team to last year's team. The one area they are clearly better, and it goes back to the days of K'Wan Williams, is being able to move Diamador Lenore inside as a nickel, having Ike Yadam be able to play the outside. And they completed some balls on Ike And I mean, the one that went to Lazard just went right over his ear hole. An incredible throw. But Charvarius Ward on the other side. We talked about throwing at Sauce Gardner. Aaron Rodgers last night did not attempt to pass to the right side outside the numbers last night. And Ward stayed over on that side. He plays left corner on the offensive right. Rodgers never went his way. So they are going to challenge Adam. They are going to challenge D. Moore. They did run the slot fade to Garrett Wilson on him. But overall, talking about improvement from this year to last year, I mean, before the game, I saw Isaiah Oliver on the field as a New York Jet, and they've converted him to safety. I mean, to start last year, he was your nickel corner, and he was being exploited. So just talk about the trio now that you have Yadam with Demo and Charvarius Ward.
I mean, it was an incredible get for the Niners in the offseason because Yadam really came of age. I mean, Yadam is a unique guy in that he's been on a bunch of teams, and normally that's a really bad sign, but he's coming off of a tremendous year last year where he was among the league leaders in pass breakups, despite the fact that he didn't play a ton. So I think Yadam's really coming into his own. That whole Renardo Green is a young player who's ready to play right now. Darrell Luter was inactive last night. Demo Lenore was saying, man, Darrell Luter doesn't even know how good he can be. He says like he's a spider out there. He's so long. So they just have a lot of talent on that back end. It's really exciting. And I think Sorensen had kind of a rough first interview where he just didn't sound right. But man, since then he's been coached up. He's a very bright guy. I think one thing that they didn't like last year is that there were multiple times that the coverage didn't match. The coverage on the back end didn't match the rush plan. And you just can't have that. It can't happen once. And it happened in multiple games and probably a dozen snaps over the course of the year. That's way too much. So that had to change, and I think there's continuity here. Fred's really tied into him. There's a commitment there from the players to Sorensen. I think Staley's a great sounding board. I don't really know, Greg and John, what Staley's role is yet. I haven't been able to ask enough questions to kind of figure out, like, what did he do this week to help them beat the Jets? But I do like the fact that he is an accomplished defensive coordinator with a lot of answers and a lot of wisdom. And Demo, who's a straight shooter, says that he is the Kyle Shanahan of their defense. I'm talking about Staley. So I loved what I saw defensively, at least game one. We'll see where it goes.
Good stuff, Krug. In terms of the passing game, I think as we look at everything, I think a lot of things are really good. Just looking around the league and getting the opportunity to watch Thursday night, Friday night, Sunday, and then looking at last night's game, and Rodgers struggled too. I think his mobility was a major part of that. Coming out, the 40 and Achilles, we talked about that all week long. But the thing that's great is it's going to get better. That wasn't Brock's best game. That wasn't Brandon Ayuk's best game. He struggled. Debo, I think, stepped up at times. But I think the one thing is they ran it really well, but the passing game has a lot of room for improvement. But I think based on seeing the rest of the league that they're going to get there.
I'll say this. I mean, I think when you factor in the opponent and the summer that the 49ers had, I think the 49ers were the most impressive team in week one across the league. Now, Kansas City got a really nice win. I thought Dallas's win over Cleveland was impressive. But when you factor in no Christian, what he's been to this team as far as percentage of offense, Ayuk is a shadow of what he's going to be. I mean, he's just rusty. You can see it. Trent in his first game. Dominic Pooney making his first start. I mean, just a lot of the things that no CMC, Ayuk, a shell of what he's going to be in a month. For them to put up 30 on this Jets defense and to play a mistake-free football game offensively, to get that kind of performance out of Mason, very impressive performance, I thought, when you factor everything in for the Niners.
Good stuff, man.
It's a short week, though. Tuesday gets on you quick. Just one quick thought, Larry, on what you saw from the Vikings, if you started to look at them yet. Aaron Jones, the former Packer, a really nice addition in their backfield, and Sam Darnold was on point on Sunday in the Meadowlands. He
is. He definitely improved from his time here. To me, what I noticed with Sam is he plays with a better pace since he's been a Niner and now in Minnesota than I ever remember him playing even going back to his SC days. He's got a pace. He's got a rhythm. I think it helped him to be around Brock and his preparation. Brock is meticulous in his preparation. And, Greg, when you look at their, that Viking team, they got the best receiver going maybe in Jefferson, but don't sleep on these other guys. I mean, Jordan Addison's a hell of a player. He's hurt now, but Jalen Naylor made some nice plays for them. They have, Christian Darrisaw is a very solid young left tackle. And they did lose Daniil Hunter, but they signed Jonathan Greenard, and Greenard's a great pass rusher. Metellus, I think, is the key guy to watch for this week. I think he's one of the most underrated players in football. He's a nickelback who they utilize a lot at the line of scrimmage in their blitz packages. And I think how the Niners block Josh Metellus is going to be a big key in this thing. Krueger,
you're the best, man. We look forward to it. What time are you starting up tonight?
6 o'clock tonight, 6 to 7, and we'll do a lot of recap and dig into some of the, I'm going to do a rewatch this afternoon of the game, and I'll have some thoughts that I'll share, and JD's going to stop by. It should be a fun night.
Krug, it's awesome. The Krug Show on YouTube. Make sure you check it out. Krug with Niners Nightly, which is going to be absolutely great. If the Giants are on, then just check it out on YouTube as well. And Krug will be there, and he's going to have JD tonight. And then look for him on all the shows all week long. Great to have you, Krug. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
You too. There is Larry Krueger.
Larry, you too.